Hello everyone, welcome to Story Club. My name is Miss Houston, and if you don't know me, I teach in year 2. In Story Club, we are going to be looking at 2 different stories each week, and I have picked some of my favourite books to share with you, so I do hope that you enjoy them. So our books for this week, we've got Ruby's Worry and The Lion Inside. If any of the year 2s are watching, they will be familiar with these books because we have looked at them before. But they are really, really good books to share together. So let's have a look at our first book. So our first book is Ruby's Worry, which is by Tom Percival. Now on here you can see we've got the front cover and the blurb, because the blurb tells us a little bit about the story as well. So it says, Ruby had always been happy, perfectly happy, until one day she discovered a worry. It says, a reassuring and sensitive book, the perfect springboard for talking to children about sharing their hidden worries, no matter how big or small they may be. In particular, I chose this book for one of our first stories in Story Club because with everything going on in the world at the moment, I thought it'd be a good book in case any of our children do have a worry, that this is a good book to share together. So let's have a look. Ruby loved being Ruby. She loved to swing up high, and she loved to explore wild, faraway places. Sometimes she even went all the way to the very bottom of the garden. Ruby was perfectly happy until one day. She discovered a worry. It wasn't a very big worry. It just wouldn't leave her alone. It was there at breakfast, staring at her over the cereal box, and it was still there at night when she cleaned her teeth. The funny thing was that no one else could see Ruby's worry, not even her teacher. So Ruby pretended that she couldn't see it either. She tried to carry on as if everything was normal, but it just wasn't. The worry was always there, stopping her from doing the things that she loved. Ruby wondered if the worry would ever go away. What if it didn't? What if it stayed with her forever? Ruby didn't realise, but she was doing the worst thing you can ever do with a worry. She was worrying about it. Now the worry was enormous. It could barely fit in the kitchen at tea time. It filled up half of the school bus. And it took up the whole road at the cinema. The worry became the only thing that Ruby could think about, and it seemed like she would never feel happy again. Then, one day, something unexpected happened. Ruby noticed a boy sitting alone at the park. He looked how she felt, sad. And then she noticed something else, something hovering next to him. Could it be a worry? It was. Ruby realised that she wasn't the only person with a worry after all. Other people had them too. She asked the boy what was on his mind, and as he told her, the strangest thing happened. His worry began to shrink. Then Ruby did the best thing you can ever do if you have a worry. She talked about it. As the words tumbled out, Ruby's worry began to shrink until it was barely there at all. Soon both of their worries were gone. Finally, Ruby felt like herself again. Of course, that wasn't the last time that she ever had a worry. Everyone gets them from time to time. But now that she knew how to get rid of them, they never hung around for long. I hope you enjoyed that first story of Ruby's Worry. We're going to go on to our next book now, which is The Lion Inside. So here we are again. We've got our front cover, The Lion Inside, and our blurb, which we're going to read together and see what our book is about. It says, you don't have to be big and brave to find your roar. Being little isn't always easy, but when Mouse sets off on a journey to find his roar, he discovers that even the smallest creature can have the heart of a lion. So maybe if you've not read this story yet, you could have a little prediction and have a little guess about what you think the story might be about. And you could share that with somebody if you've not read the story before. That would be really, really good. Okay, let's start reading our story. In a dry, dusty place, where the sand sparkled gold, stood a mighty flat rock, all craggy and old. And under that rock, in a tiny little house, lived the littlest, quietest, meekest brown mouse. He was so very tiny, so incredibly small, that nobody noticed him ever at all. He got trod on and sat on, and missed out for stuff, ignored and forgotten. Yes, mouse life was tough. Poor mouse. Meanwhile, far above, on top of the rock, times were quite different. It was lion o'clock. This huge toothsome creature made sure everyone saw how important he was by how loud he could roar. He was head of the pack, he was shouty and tough, he loved showing the crowd he was made of strong stuff. Yes, all were impressed by this mighty King Cat. If only, thought Mouse, I could be more like that. Then late one dark night, in his Minnie Mouse bed, the cleverest thought popped into his head. He jumped from the covers, then held up a paw. I've got it, he said. What I need is a roar. I mean, what if this mouse, with the weeniest squeak, was a little more grrr and a little less meek? Well, he'd still be the smallest of fuzzy brown mice, but he'd make friends and join in, and life would be nice. Yes, thought the mouse, I must find out how. I will learn how to roar, and I will learn it now. But gulp, oh my gosh, there was only one beast who could teach him this thing, but might make him a feast. It was time to be strong, take a chance after all. Forever was such a long time to feel small. So he made himself brave, and he thought like a winner. He set off for the top, hoping not to be dinner. It felt like the scariest thing he could do. But if you want things to change, you first have to change you. The further he climbed, the closer he got to the slumbering lion reclining on top. Then at last, as he stood on his tippy toes, he found himself suddenly nose to nose. Gulp, pardon me. Wake up, Mr. Lion, you've got company. Squeak, Mr. Lion, what I've come to you for is squeak. Do you think you could teach me your roar? A silence befell, that twinkling plain. Lion opened his eyes and puffed out his mane. Time slowed right down, why, it felt like a week. Then he opened his mouth and let out an eek. The lion was shaking, his paws all a-fumble. He was backing away with a scrambling tumble. Don't hurt me, he whimpered. Oh, try to be nice. Well, my goodness, this lion was frightened of mice. Don't worry, Mouse peeped. I'm a friend, not a foe. Let's rock this together. We'll have fun, don't you know? That was a magical moment for sure, when Mouse didn't feel at all small anymore. He had found his true voice and learned to speak out, and for that you don't need to roar or to shout. And from that day and always the two were a pair. They both liked that rock better, now that rock was to share. The mouse, while still little, felt big in his head, and Lion, he still roared, but with laughter instead. Yes, that day they both learned that no matter your size, we all have a mouse and a lion inside. Thank you so much for listening to our stories today. I really do hope that you enjoyed them. We had two very different books today. We had our first book, which was Ruby's Worry, and that book is good for remembering that if we do have a worry, we know that we can talk to someone about it, because keeping on to it sometimes makes a worry feel bigger and bigger and bigger, and we don't want that. We want to be able to help each other. And then our second book is The Lion Inside, which is one of my personal favourites. I do love a good rhyming book. And that book helped us to remember that it doesn't matter how big or small you are, You are important and that you should speak up if you have something to say, which is always good. Now, I have some tricky challenges for you. I want you to submit some amazing work with some photos to Facebook if you can. And if you do, can you use the hashtag Story Club? Because I can't wait to see all of your amazing work. So let's have a look at the tricky challenges today. Okay, let's look at our tricky challenges this week. So every week we're going to have 3 challenges. Now it's up to you how many you do, whether you want to do 1, 2 or 3. But remember, any activities or any challenges that you do, please do take some photos or videos. And if you can upload them onto our Facebook page and use the hashtag Story Club, that would be fantastic. So our first challenge is about Ruby's worry. So it says, do you ever feel worried about anything? What could you do if you felt worried? Worry monsters love to eat worries. So can you design your own worry monster? You could write about him or her anything that makes you feel worried. So worry monsters are things that normally it can be like a teddy bear where you say your worries out loud and it's meant to help you get your worry out into the open so that the worry then disappears. It's kind of the same thing as talking to a grown-up, but sometimes you want to talk to somebody else. So could you design your own? You could even make it out of junk modelling, you could collage, you could paint, whatever you would like. But the main thing is, if you have any worries, you can either write them down on the outside or you could tell them to your worry monster. That would be fantastic. Our second challenge is for the book The Lion Inside. So it says the mouse overcomes his fears and goes to the lion for help. In the end, they both end up helping each other. So the second one is overcoming your fears. Can you think of a time when you have overcome your fears? Can you write a letter to someone explaining how it made you feel? What advice could you give to others? So your fears could be little fears, as in I get scared standing up in front of the class talking or acting. That could be a small fear that you might have because you might feel like you're going to be embarrassed or it's just scary and nerve-wracking. How could you overcome that fear? Could you practice at home? It could be a fear of certain foods. It could be a fear of bumblebees. I know that there's somebody in year 2 that's got a big fear of bumblebees. But it's writing a letter to somebody explaining how you felt when you overcame your fear. So that would be your second challenge. Or what advice could you give to them? So that might be talking to a friend about it, explaining how you feel, trying to overcome the fear together, that sort of thing. And our last challenge is always called our ultimate challenge. So it says, can you remember what happened in the story? Were you listening carefully to every part? So this is my role play challenge. Can you recreate the story in your own way? You may choose to act it out and ask a grown-up to film it. You may want to create a storyboard or a script or a poster or a comic, and that can be about The Lion Inside or Ruby's Worry. That is your choice on that one. You can choose either of those stories. You could even make some puppets and act it out. You could make a mask. You could get all your grown-ups involved. If you've got baby brothers and sisters or older brothers and sisters, get them all involved. I'd love to see how creative you can be. So those are my 3 tricky challenges. Please do upload any evidence to Facebook because I would love to see it, and I will be replying to all of them as I can't see all your faces at the moment, but that would be fantastic. Thank you so much for listening to Story Club. I really do hope that you enjoyed it, and I will see you again next week. Bye!